Right now, we're facing a man-made disaster of global scale, our greatest threat in thousands of years, climate change. If we don't take action, the collapse of our civilizations and the extinction of much of the natural world is on the horizon. The world's people have spoken. Their message is clear. Time is running out.
The amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere now is 50% higher than it was in 1900. And not only are we piling in more and more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but we are chopping down the forests of the earth at a great rate. And the forests themselves are the most efficient consumers of carbon dioxide that there are on Earth. We're going to destroy the ground because the soil of a rainforest isn't very good. We are actually tampering with the climate of the Earth and with the very atmosphere that we breathe. When we talk about the disappearance of the ozone layer, we don't know what will happen when the ozone layer goes. The world has become so fragile that we cannot subject the Earth to the tortures we can now inflict upon it. When we talk about the greenhouse effect, we're talking about something that affects the entire Earth. And these problems are life and death problems. They go to the root of the viability of the planet itself. If there's one thing that is biologically certain about the human species is that it is a human species, one species.
If we don't stop the destruction of our natural world, nothing else will matter. Simply put, if we don't protect nature, we can't protect ourselves.
The only way we can solve a problem is by a human solution. Never can we sit back and wait for miracles to save us. Miracles don't happen. Sweat happens. Efforts happens. Thought happens.
Good day everyone, we warmly welcome you to today's webinar on climate change, one of the most pressing global challenges of our time. Thank you for joining as we come together to learn, reflect, and take part of the important discussion that affects our environment, livelihood, and future generations. This webinar aims to define our understanding of climate change, its causes, impact, and possible solution, while highlighting the role of individual community. And now, what is climate change? Climate change refers to the long-term shift, temperature, and the weather pattern across the globe. While such shift can occur naturally, the current rapid change observed since the 1980s are primarily driven by the human activities. The fundamental mechanism of the greenhouse effect, where certain gases in the Earth's atmosphere act like a blanket, trapping the sun heat and preventing it from riding back into the space change. Greenhouse gases, human activities, deforestation, the main drivers of the current climate change, are the numerous amount of the greenhouse gases being added to the atmosphere by human activities. The most significant responsible for this warming included carbon dioxide, released mainly from the burning fossil fuel for the power industry and transport. Next, methane, primarily produced by the agriculture, livestock farming, digestion and rice cultivation, and soil gas operation.
Good day everyone, I am Kenneth Santiago. and I will be discussing an important topic that affects all of us, climate change. I will explain what it is, its causes, and its effects on our planet, as well as the role of forests in helping us fight them. So, nitrous oxide. What is nitrous oxide? It's a gas that causes climate change. It traps heat in the air and makes the earth warmer. Even if only a small amount is released, it has a strong effect on the climate. Nitrous oxide comes from burning fossil fuels and from using fertilizers in farming. When cars, factories, and power plants burn fuel like gasoline, coal, or oil, nitrous oxide is released into the air. Another major source is fertilizer used in farms. Farmers use fertilizer to help plants grow. These fertilizers contains nitrogen. However, plants do not use all of the nitrogen. The extra nitrogen stays in the soil, and the soil bacteria change it into nitrous oxide. So, this gas then goes up into the air. Nitrous oxide is harmful because it stays in the air for a very long time, and it keeps heat trapped. It also damages the ozone layer, which protects people, plants, and animals from strong sunlight. In short, nitrous oxide adds to global warming. Using less fossil fuel and applying fertilizer correctly can help reduce this problem. Now, I will talk about human activities. What is human activities? What are the human activities that causes climate change? So, the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions come from three big sectors: energy, industry, and transport. So the first one is energy. This includes the electricity and the heat we use every day. Most of it comes from burning coal, oil, and gas. This process releases a lot of carbon dioxide into the air, which warms our planet. So the second one is industry. Factories and manufacturing plants produce goods like cement, steel, and chemicals. These industries release greenhouse gases, not just from energy use, but also from the production processes themselves. The third one, transport. Cars, buses, trucks, ships, and airplanes burn fuels like gasoline and diesel. This produces carbon dioxide and other gases that also contribute to global warming. So in short, our daily energy use, factories, and transportation are the main human activities causing climate change. If we find cleaner energy sources, use energy wisely, and switch to greener transport, we can reduce these harmful emissions and help our planet. Now, we'll talk about deforestation. So, what is deforestation? Deforestation means cutting down and burning forests. This is the major cause of climate change. Trees are very important because they absorb carbon dioxide, a gas that causes the earth to warm. Trees store this carbon in their trunks, branches, and roots. When forests are cut down or burned, the stored carbon is released back into the air. When trees are burned, a lot of smoke and carbon dioxide go into the atmosphere. This increases heat in the air and makes the earth warmer. Also, when trees are removed, there are fewer trees left to absorb carbon dioxide. So, forests are called a carbon sink because they help remove carbon dioxide from the air. When forests are destroyed, this natural system is lost. As a result, more carbon dioxide stay in the atmospheres. Deforestation also causes other problems such as loss of wildlife, soil erosion, floods, and less rainfall. In short, cutting and burning forests increases greenhouse gases and removes nature's way of controlling climate change. Protecting and planting trees can help reduce this problem. So forests as a climate regulators. Now, I would like to talk about forests as a climate regulators. Forests play a very important role in regulating the Earth's climate. They help control temperature and reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So, carbon dioxide is a gas that causes global warming. Trees absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. They use this gas to grow and store it in their trunks, branches, leaves, and roots. In this way, forests act as a natural system that removes carbon dioxide from the air. At the same time, forests help cool the environment. They provide shade and release water vapor into the air, which helps lower temperatures and support rainfall. This process helps keep the climate balanced and stable. Forests also help protect the land. They prevent soil erosion, reduce flooding, and support many plants and animals healthy. So, healthy forests make ecosystems stronger and help communities survive climate change. So forests act in two important ways. They reduce carbon dioxide in the air and help cool the earth. Because of this, protecting forests is essential in fighting climate change and maintaining a healthy planet. Carbon sequestration, carbon sink. Now I will explain carbon sequestration, also known as carbon sink. Carbon sequestration is the process where forests remove carbon dioxide from the air. Forests are called carbon sinks because they help reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Trees absorb carbon during photosynthesis. They use this gas along with the sunlight and water to grow. As trees grow, the carbon dioxide is stored in different parts of the trees, such as trunks, branches, and leaves and roots. Carbon is also stored in the soil. When leaves fall and plants decay, the carbon goes into the ground and stays there for a long time. This helps keep carbon out of the atmosphere. This process is very important because carbon dioxide is a major cause of climate change. By storing carbon, forests help slow down global warming and keep the climate balanced. So, at the same in forest as regulator, forests act as a natural carbon sink by taking in carbon dioxide and storing it in trees and soil, and protecting forests to help reduce climate change. Now, for my last topic, I will talk about forests as a biodiversity reservoirs. Forests are home to most of the plants and animals on Earth. They provide food, shelter, and space for many species, such as trees, birds, insects, mammals, and microorganisms. Because of this, forests are called biodiversity reservoirs, meaning they hold a great variety of life. This biodiversity is very important for the health of forests. Different plants and animals work together to keep the forest balanced. For example, insects help with pollination, animals spread seeds, and microorganisms help break down dead plants and return nutrients to the soil. Healthy and diverse forests are stronger and more stable. They can better survive storms, droughts, pests, and diseases. Because of this strength, forests can continue absorbing and storing carbon dioxide from the air. Biodiversity is lost, forest becomes weak and less able to store carbon. This makes climate change worse. So, protecting forest biodiversity helps keep forests healthy, strong and effective as carbon sink. By protecting wildlife and forests, we also protect our climate. Thank you to your time and effort to listen to my discussion, and I hope you gain knowledge about climate change.
Good day, everyone. I am Franklin Tulisana Jr., and today I will be discussing the topic Impacts of Climate Change on Forest Ecosystems. Forest fires and extreme weather events. One of the most visible and destructive impacts of climate change on forest ecosystem is the increase in forest fires and extreme weather events. As global temperatures rise, forests around the world are becoming hotter and drier. Prolonged drought reduces moisture in soils and vegetation, turning leaves, branches, and forest litters into highly flammable fuel. Under these conditions, even a small spark from lightning or human activity can trigger massive wildfires. Climate change not only increases the likelihood of wildfires, but also their intensity and duration. Fire seasons are becoming longer, and fires are burning larger areas than in the past. These intense fires can destroy entire forest stands, killing mature trees that may have taken decades or even centuries to grow. In some cases, repeated fires prevent forests from regenerating at all, converting forested areas into grassland or shrublands. Beyond wildfires, climate change is also increasing the frequency and severity of extreme weather events. Stronger storms and typhoons can uproot trees, break branches, and damage forest canopies. Heavy rainfall can lead to flooding and landslides, especially in forest areas where vegetation has already been weakened by drought or deforestation. Landslides remove topsoil, which is essential for plant growth, and expose tree roots, making it difficult for forests to recover. Floods and heavy rainfall also disrupt forest ecosystems by washing away nutrients and altering soil composition. When soil structure is damaged, seedlings struggles to establish, and tree growth slows in coastal or low-lying forests. Saltwater intrusion caused by storm surges can further damage vegetation and reduce forest productivity. After such disturbance, whether fire, storm, flood, or landslides, forests often face serious challenges in regeneration. The loss of trees reduces shade and moisture, creating harsh conditions for young plants. Changes in soil quality combined with the introduction of invasive species can prevent native trees from growing back. Invasive plants often spread quickly in disturbed areas, outcompeting native species for light, water, and nutrients. As a result, forests become less resilient over time. Instead of recovering fully, they may shift into degraded ecosystems with lower biodiversity, reduced productivity, and weakened ecological functions. This cycle of disturbance and poor recovery poses a major threat to the long-term stability of forest ecosystem. Why these impacts matter for people and planet. The impacts of forest fires and extreme weather events go far beyond forests themselves. Forests are essential for biodiversity, providing habitat, food, and shelter for countless plant and animal species. When forests burn or are damaged by storms, many species lose their homes. Some animals be able to migrate, but others, especially those with limited ranges, face population declines or extinction. Forests also play a crucial role in carbon storage. Trees absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in their trunks, roots, and surrounding soil. When forests burn or die back, this stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide, further accelerating climate change. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. Climate change increases forest disturbances, and forest disturbances worsen climate change. In addition, forest provides vital ecosystem services that support human life. They help regulate water cycles by absorbing rainfall and releasing it slowly into rivers and streams, reducing the risk of floods. Forest roots stabilize soil, preventing erosion and landslides. Forests also act as natural barrier against storms and strong winds, protecting nearby communities. Many people, especially in rural areas, forests are a source of livelihood and resources, such as timber, fuel wood, food, and medicinal plants. When forests are degraded, these resources become scarce, affecting food security, income, and overall well-being. Communities that depend on forests are often the most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So, what at stake and what should we do? Climate change does not simply mean warmer temperatures. For forests, it means a fundamental reshaping of entire ecosystems. Many forest species may disappear from certain regions. Some forests may become less productive, while others may collapse altogether. And extreme weather events can erase decades or even centuries of forest growth in a matter of days. However, the future of forests is not entirely hopeless. Preserving forest ecosystems in the face of climate change will require active adoption and sustainable management. This includes planting and protecting climate resilient tree species, conserving biodiversity, and restoring degraded forest areas. Monitoring forest health can help detect early signs of tree pests or diseases, allowing timely intervention. Equally important is reducing other human pressures on forests, such as deforestation, land use change, and spread of invasive species. By protecting forests and managing them wisely, we can strengthen their ability to adapt to climate change and continue providing essential services for both people and the planet. In conclusion, forests are not just victims of climate change. They are also a critical part of the solution. Protecting them today is an investment in a more stable climate and a healthier future for generations to come. Before I end in this topic, let's answer some questions. First, which gas is most responsible for global warming? The gas most responsible for the current warming trend is carbon dioxide. While other gases like methane are more potent, meaning they are trap more heat per molecule, is the most significant because of the sheer volume we emit and how long it stays in the atmosphere. It is responsible for about 80% of the total heating influence from human-produced greenhouse gases. Second is true or false. Does climate change can cause trees to flower earlier than usual? The answer is true. This is a documented phenomenon called phenological shift. Because spring temperatures are arriving earlier and winter are becoming milder, many trees receive the signal to bloom weeks ahead of their historical schedule. But there is a risk. This can create a mismatch where flowers bloom before their natural pollinators like bees or birds have emerged or migrated, disrupting the entire food chain. Third is the vulnerable forest ecosystem in the Philippines, the Dipterocarp forest. The Dipterocarp forests are tropical lowland rainforests are among the most vulnerable to rising temperatures in the Philippines. So why they are at risk? These forests are home to iconic hardwood trees like yakal, apitong, and tanggil. Recent studies shows that as the lowlands become too hot, these species are forced to migrate to higher elevations. The problem, as they move up mountains, the available land area shrinks, leading to a significant loss of habitat and biodiversity.
Good day everyone, I'm Jerom D. Amasula, a BS Forestry student, and today we're talking about the impacts of climate change in forest ecosystem. A shift in species composition. As global temperatures rise and precipitation patterns change, many trees species are forced to migrate to more suitable climates, typically toward higher latitudes or altitudes. This migration leaves behind species that cannot adapt or move fast enough, often endemic or cold adapted species, which can lead to local extinctions. Over time, forest composition changes. Heat or drought tolerant species replace species that thrive under the old climate, altering biodiversity and ecosystem balance. Increased vulnerability to pests and disease. Warmer temperatures and shifting precipitations patterns create favorable conditions or many pests and pathogens, like for example insects, fungi that attack trees. Trees under climate under climate stress from drought, heat, poor soils often become weaker. Their natural defenses, resistance toxins, sap productions diminish, making them more susceptible to infestation and disease. The result: increased tree mortality, reduced forest health, and potential collapse of some forest stands. Alternate growth patterns and productivity. Climate change, the basic physiological process of trees. For example, drought, reduced water availability, underwater stress. Trees may close their stomata to conserve water, but that reduces photosynthesis and carbon uptake. Long-term studies indicate that while some forests have shown temporary increase in productivity, under elevated when water is sufficient. Projections show that negative impacts will dominate by mid-century as droughts become more frequent and intense. In worst case, especially under severe or repeated stress, forests may suffer from dieback, reduced growth, lower biomass, and decreased carbon sequestration. So, climate change affects forests in simple but serious ways. As temperatures rise and rainfall change, some tree species move to cooler areas, while others that control adapt may die out, change the types of trees in a forest. Warmer and drier conditions also make trees weaker, allowing pests and disease to spread more easily and kill more trees. At the same time, drought and heat reduce tree growth by limiting water and photosynthesis, leading to slower growth, forest dieback, and less ability to store carbon. Thank you.
Good day everyone. For this part of our seminar, I will be discuss the case studies and local relevance focusing on the Philippine forest at rest. The Philippines is one of the most forest-rich countries in the world, but many of its forests are under serious threat. So in this section, I will highlight the three important areas. So first, the Sierra Madre, Palawan, and the Mindanao uplands. So first, the Sierra Madre. The Sierra Madre is the longest mountain range in the Philippines and serves as natural barriers against typhoons, especially in Luzon. Its forests help reduce flood, landslide, and soil erosion. However, illegal logging, mining activities, and infrastructure projects have caused the significant deforestation. As a result, nearby communities become more vulnerable to natural disasters. Next is Palawan. Palawan known as a biodiversity hotspot because it is home to many unique plant and animal species found only in the Philippines. Despite its importance, Palawan's forests are threatened by mining, tourism development, and land conversion. Forest loss in Palawan affects wildlife, freshwater sources, and ecotourism, which many local residents depend for their livelihood. Lastly, the Mindanao uplands. The upland forests of Mindanao are rich in natural resources and support many indigenous and rural communities. However, large-scale logging and agricultural expansion have led to forest degradation that result in soil erosion, flooding, and decline in forest resources that communities rely for food, materials, and income. These case studies show that forest degradation not only an environmental issue but also a social and economic concern, especially for communities living near forest area.
Good day everyone, this is Nanyame Baktol. Welcome to our webinar titled Climate Change, Community, Indigenous Knowledge, Forests and Livelihoods. Today, I will discuss how climate change affects our communities, especially indigenous people, the importance of forests, and how sustainable livelihoods can help us adapt to climate change. So, what is climate change? Climate change refers to long-term changes in temperature and weather patterns. These changes are mainly caused by human activities such as deforestation, pollution, and burning of fossil fuels. Because of climate change, we experience stronger typhoons, longer droughts, floods, and rising temperature. This affects threatens both nature and human life. Why communities are affected? Communities, especially those in rural and forest areas, de- depend heavily on natural resources for food, water, and income. When climate change damages the environment, communities suffer first. Drought fuels, water sources dry up, and livelihoods become unsustainable. This makes climate change not only an environmental issue, but also a social and income problem. Indigenous people and climate change. Indigenous people live in close connection with nature, especially forests and ancestral lands. Although they contribute the least to climate change, they are among the most affected. Climate change threatens their land, culture, and traditional way of life. Indigenous knowledge. Indigenous knowledge is traditional knowledge passed down from generation to generation. This include farming techniques, forest conservation practices, and understanding natural science of weather prediction. These practices are sustainable and environment friendly. Indigenous knowledge plays a vital role in adapting to climate change and protecting ecosystem. Forest and climate change. Forests are very important in fighting climate change. They absorb carbon dioxide, which help reduce global warming. Forests also regulate climate, protect biodiversity, and prevent disasters such as floods and landslide. When forests are destroyed, climate change becomes worse. Forests and livelihoods. Forests provide food, medicine, fuel, and income to millions of people. Many communities depend on forests for their daily needs and livelihoods. Sustainable use of forest resources ensure long-term benefits for both people and nature. Protecting forests means protecting livelihoods. Community-based forest management. Community-based forest management allows people to protect and manage the forest. When communities are involved, forests are better conserved. People feel responsible for their resources. This approach also provides income while protecting the environment. Community participation is key to sustainable forest management. Development and sustainability. Development should meet the needs of the present without harming the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Sustainable development balances economic growth, environmental protection, and social well being. True development does not destroy forests or displace communities. Solution and action. To address climate change, we must protect forests, supporting indigenous rights, and involve communities in decision making. Combining indigenous knowledge with specific solution can strengthen climate action. Every has a role to play in protecting our planet. To conclude, climate change affects everyone, but it affects vulnerable communities the most. By protecting forests, respecting indigenous knowledge, and supporting sustainable livelihoods, we can build a climate resilient future. Communities and indigenous people are not just victims of climate change. They are key patterns in solving it. Thank you very much for your time and attention. Together, let us protect our forest, empowerment communities, and take action climate change. Thank you.
So, good day everyone. For this part of our presentation, we will discuss mitigation and adaptation strategies to address climate change, focusing on forest. So, these strategies aim to reduce climate impacts while helping ecosystems and communities adapt. forest conservation and reforestation. First is forest conservation and reforestation. Forest plays a very important role in climate change mitigation because they absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and store it in trees and soil. One key strategy is native species planting. Native trees such as Nara, Molave, and other dipterocarps are well adapted to our local climate. They grow better, support biodiversity, are more resistant to pests and diseases compared to exotic species. Another strategy is assisted migration. This means helping certain trees species move or be planted in areas where future climate continues will be more suitable for the survival because of rising temperatures and changing rainfall patterns. Some species may no longer thrive in their original locations. So, in the Philippines, uh, programs like the National Greening Program support conservation and reforestation efforts by involving local communities and restoring degraded forest lands. To conclude, mitigation and adaptation strategies such as forest conservation, climate smart forestry, and strong governance are essential in combating climate change by protecting a sustainable future for both people and the environment. Thank you.
Good day everyone. The second strategy is climate smart forestry practices. These practices focus on managing forests in a way that balances environmental protection with human needs, especially as a climate changing increase pressure on forest ecosystem. Climate smart forestry aims to achieve three main goals: increasing forest resilience, reducing greenhouse gas emission, and maintaining forest productivity. By applying these practices, forests are better able to adapt to rising temperature, stronger storms, and changing rainfall patterns. One important practice is the use of monitoring system. Modern technologies such as satellite imagery, drones, geographic information system, and regular field monitoring allows forest managers to observe changes in forest covers in real time. These tools help detect illegal logging, forest fires, and pest or disease outbreaks at earlier stage. Early detection is crucial because it allows faster response, prevents further forest loss, and reduced carbon emission released into the atmosphere. Monitoring systems also improve transparency and accountability in forest management. They help government agencies and local communities track forest conditions and ensure that forest policies are properly implemented. Another key practice is sustainable harvesting. Instead of clear-cutting large forest areas, selective logging is applied so that only matured, appropriate trees are harvested. This approach maintains forest structure, protects biodiversity, and allows the younger trees to grow and replace those that were cut. Sustainable harvesting ensures that forests continue providing ecosystem services such as carbon storage, water regulation, soil protection, and livelihoods for forest-dependent communities. The final strategy focuses on policy governance. Effective laws, strong instructions, and proper implementations are essential in addressing climate change and protecting forest resources. In the Philippines, climate actions is guided by important national policies such as Climate Change Act of 2009. This law established the Climate Change commission and provide a framework for integrating climate change adaptation and mitigation into the national regulation and local development plans. It ensures that climate change is considered as decision-making across all sectors, including forestry. Another major commitment is the country's National Determined Contribution, or NDC. The NDC outlines the Philippines' targets for reducing greenhouse gas emission and increasing climate resilience. The forestry sector plays a key role in achieving these targets by protecting forests and enhancing carbon sinks. An important international initiative is REDD+, which stands for Reducing Emission from Deforestation and Forest Degradation. REDD+ provides financial and technical incentives to conserve forests, promote sustainable forest management, and enhance forest carbon stocks. It also recognizes the vital role of local communities and indigenous people in forest protection. Good governance also includes strict enforcement of law against illegal logging and conversion and forest destruction. Equal important is community participation in forest management. When communities are involved in planning and decision-making, forest conversion becomes more effective and sustainable. Through strong policies and good governance and active public participation, the forest sectors can make significant contribution to climate change mitigation, adaptation, and sustainable development.
Everyone's talking about climate change, but what is our climate? And why is it changing? Our climate is the Earth's normal weather over a very long time. It usually takes hundreds or thousands of years for the climate to change. But recently, our climate has been changing much faster. All these changes make life harder for our plants, animals, and for people around the world. And the biggest cause of climate change is humans, including you and me. When we use fuel like oil and gasoline, or remove forests to make room for cities or farms, we release greenhouse gases into our atmosphere. These greenhouse gases cause our climate to get warmer. Normally, when the heat from the sun warms our planet, some of the heat reflects back into space. But greenhouse gases act like a big blanket, holding some of it in. This extra heat can cause all sorts of problems for our planet, and the plants, animals, and people who live here. Our ice and snow are melting faster. Our oceans are getting warmer and higher, and our weather is becoming more extreme, with more heat waves, heavy rainfalls, and powerful hurricanes. Luckily, many countries around the world are working together to fight climate change. And there are lots of easy ways you and I can help too, like reusing things instead of throwing them out. Instead of driving, ride your bike or take the bus. Use less electricity, and eat food grown closer to home. You and I, we can make a difference. We can fight climate change.